Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 with my continuing playthrough of the Kings Crusade, game of the Third Crusade. We have some choices to make here. We can go to Antioch, which is difficulty easy. Damascus, very hard. I agree with that. Antioch, I do also agree that it should be easy. Jordan, medium. Sounds about right. This is desert terrain. I didn't think Antioch would be desert terrain, but okay. And the cyanide, medium. Light cavalry. We're gonna go with Antioch. It should be a good place. It'll secure our northern flanks somewhat more. I don't know how important that is in this game. Okay.
Welcome, good king. A great army is approaching Antioch, but worry not. Wait patiently, my good Lionheart, until they draw near. Then wipe them out swiftly.
A massive army is approaching Antioch. It is imperative that we arrive there ahead of their forces. It will be a hard, forced march for all of our men, but we must have time to make the necessary preparations before their arrival.
Welcome, good king.
A massive army is approaching
Okay,
Antioch.
Welcome, good king. A great army is approaching Antioch, but worry not. Wait patiently, my good Lionheart, until they draw near.
A massive army is approaching Antioch. It is imperative that we arrive there ahead of their forces. It will be a hard, forced march for all of our men, but we must have time to make the necessary preparations before their arrival.
Okay, this is interesting.
Welcome, good king. A great army is approaching Antioch, but worry not. Wait patiently, my good Lionheart, until they draw near. Then wipe them out swiftly.
That sounds interesting.
A massive army is approaching Antioch. It is imperative that we arrive there ahead of their forces. It will be a hard, forced march for all of our men, but we must have time to make the necessary preparations before their arrival.
We're gonna try hurting their morale. I've taken a loan out to increase our forces because Jerusalem took a heavy toll on us in the end. I'm hoping that we'll be able to pay back much of our loan and not lose any major amount of forces in this. Didn't know how useful a Saracen unit would be. Okay. Force here. Force here. Archers, what are these? Swordsmen, warriors. Force compositions, how best to deal with them.
Infantry. Great.
No, we don't get to reposition then, I guess. Okay. Question is, do we want to go on the offensive? Which is what I think we're going to do here. And not wait around for them to attack. Let's go get the oasis here.
Infantry. Right. Infantry.
Great.
Infantry. Infantry. Acknowledged. Archers.
Acknowledged.
Archers.
Absolutely.
Archers.
Yes, Lord.
Cavalry.
Yes, my lord.
Cavalry. Right.
Cavalry, as it should be, seems to get slaughtered by pikemen, especially properly formed up pikemen. But pikemen can be slaughtered by archers.
Infantry.
Our knights are
Acknowledged.
take low casualties against their archers, which is reasonable.
Yes, my king.
Infantry.
Yes, my
So what we're gonna do is, if everything works out like I'm hoping, move in against these guys with the foot leading,
Acknowledged.
backed up by the archers, and then screened by the cavalry.
Archers. Great.
Hopefully we'll do it without major losses.
Great. Cavalry. All right. Archers. Archers. Infantry.
All right.
Archers.
Go faster.
Archers.
All right.
Infantry. Yes, my king. Archers. Right.
Infantry.
Acknowledged.
Infantry. Infantry. Absolutely. Archers.
Great.
Infantry. Go faster.
Archers.
Don't know if this is well enough modeled that high ground will get better range.
Cavalry. Yes,
And
my king.
low ground firing or anything like that, but we'll see how that works. Antioch was an important city in the region. At times, fairly well defended with walls. The siege of Antioch, and the one I'm thinking of at least, is a Christian siege.
Archers. Yes, my king. Infantry. All right.
Was a significant
Cavalry. Move fast.
battle. And I'm thinking, what, at least if I'm thinking correctly, it's of the
Infantry.
First Crusade. I'm sure there was Muslim sieges. Okay, no. No.
Go
Infantry.
faster. Infantry.
Right. Archers.
Okay. Pause. Take out the spearmen. All of you guys.
Cavalry.
And we'll slow the game speed down now that we're engaged in some action.
Archers! Archers! Fire! Archers! Fire! Infantry!
Scatter the enemy.
Now let's pause this. I want to go in for a close-up look of the... none of the archers, guys. Let's... take a look at the battle. Archers are just shooting arrows. Good, they're hitting on the flank there. That'll take them down. Okay, now go after the archers.
Scatter the enemy.
Their armor and shields seem to be maybe not impervious, but mostly so. But my archers aren't impervious to their archers, so we'll...
Infantry!
march down off the hill, take them out. What are they shooting at?
The enemy.
Excuse me. We're going to use similar tactics. I'm more open to using the horses in the next battle because...
Scatter the enemy! Scatter the enemy!
there's no pikemen, spearmen, or whatever you want to call them. The Arabs, to the best of my knowledge, did not use pikemen as classically, or any sort of phalanx. I don't even know if they, I mean, did they have spears? Maybe, but I don't think much. Well, maybe, no, I'm thinking, I don't know. Not much, and not the big long pikes for sure, or the big long phalanx. Greek type warfare. That's for sure. Okay, let's move up my archers. I don't think they're going to get into combat here. I'm just pushing them up to
Cavalry.
keep the flow in there.
Infantry.
The few guys fighting for their lives aren't going to be able to
Infantry.
Infantry.
launch any effective arrows against us. Okay. So the Christians have secured one of the points.
Infantry! All right. Infantry!
Move faster.
John Keegan wrote a very good book on the history of warfare. And he talked about the Western way of war versus the Eastern way of war. And this is not anything to do with Christian or Islam or anything like this. It was the way of war. And you can look at the stuff very much.
Archer! Great.
Well, we should build defenses before the Saracens arrive and defend all victories against. And he very much talked about, I don't know if exactly starting with the Greeks, but definitely with the Greeks as part of it, as their the Western sort of direct head-on warfare with the Greek phalanxes or the Roman legion. Sure, the Roman legions used pilums or javelins, if you want to call them that, but if you know what pilums are, and threw those at the enemy, but they were very sort of direct attack, frontal attack, if you will, heavy warfare type things, and that really epitomizes Western warfare. And you can even look at Vikings. With they had shield walls, most assuredly, but we also had the situations of charges, and that aren't necessarily as tightly organized as a Roman legion or a Greek or Macedonian phalanx, but they were direct on. Where in the East it was sort of warfare of skirmish, warfare of missiles, warfare of
Archers! Yes, infantry!
of an indirect attack, with wearing your enemy down and breaking your enemy on both sides.
Cavalry!
When they clashed, East and West, it's often seen as the heavy, highly organized army trying to get to and come to grips with the Eastern armies that would, whether horsemen or infantrymen, would try to flee out of that contact situation and constantly missile weapons. But even when they fought amongst themselves, both with the same types of
Infantry!
where are they? They're over here. Okay. We need to move.
All right.
No.
All right.
Let's get facing the right way.
Archers! Great. Cavalry!
And so that they would themselves, amongst, each other,
Cavalry!
would fight in this manner. So that
Archers!
they wouldn't
Archers!
directly go in and try to attack each other until they've broken
Infantry! All right.
the opponent's side. So they would missile weapon, skirmish, whatever you want to call it, ambush possibly. These types of war
Great.
compared to the West, which was a direct type of war, which can be seen whether it's in Saddam Hussein's
Infantry!
after the first Gulf War, if you want to call it that, because the first Gulf War to me is really the Iran-Iraq War, but the war over Kuwait, and he saw that his great war machine wasn't even going to momentarily stand up to the U.S. or any other relatively decent, true Western.
Archers! Right. Infantry! Archers!
Army, so that they needed to think in terms of sort of the traditional, if you will,
Infantry! Scatter the enemy!
settings of a indirect warfare with
Scatter the enemy!
roadside bombs, guerrilla warfare and indirect warfare, a wearing down warfare that he was had previously set up. I think it's quite clear that he had previously set up to
Fire!
there on the other unit maybe.
Fire!
Before the which required containment. So that
Infantry!
by doing so, they set up, you know, doing this before the second Gulf War, the second invasion of Iraq, whatever you want to say, that he had prepared this in you know, before. And in doing so,
Infantry.
Scatter the enemy!
sort of set that up. And then, of course, later we've seen the Islamic resistance, whether Al-Qaeda in Iraq or ISIS or similar ones, doing the same with whether with the U.S. or with Assad's forces. Assad's forces have had to try to be able to do a set-piece warfare and train for that because of their conflict with Israel, because Israel, generally speaking, follows the Western pattern of warfare of a direct attack. Now, that's not saying, you know, the phalanx is locked-in formation and it is set for a frontal attack, and most, you know, I mean, we can find enemies of, or examples, I should say, that enemies, because they were shouting it here to me on the screen. A direct attack, frontal attack kind of thing. We can't find other things, other examples, but you can use the idea of coming to grips with your enemy directly, but in an indirect approach, meaning hitting them on the flank or other similar sorts of attacks. It isn't
Archers! Acknowledged. Cavalry! Yes, my king! Great.
exclusive, you know, it isn't mindless, oh, there's the enemy, let's always attack to the front on them, but it is an attempt to aggressively get in there and engage them, quite often, shall we say, in a smart manner, but not always, but with that idea in mind, engage them directly and take them on. And this is why I think an organization like the U.S. Marine Corps, which teaches that very much so, has smaller numbers can outfight larger numbers because they are of a mindset, and it's a training mindset. And this is, you know, you can have people from the Middle East that are, you know, born and raised in America or whatever, going through the U.S. Marine Corps and come up with this mindset. It isn't a racial thing in any means. It is a viewpoint, culturally, shall we say, of how to fight a war.
Yes,
and that the United States Marines, you know, you don't want to get a group of U.S. Marines pissed off, you know, really pissed off at you, you know, and they're gonna mess with you because they're gonna take the war to you. And so we see this very much in this clash of systems here in the Crusades. I very much maintain that well, there were good and bad generals on both sides, and sometimes the generals on both sides were directly responsible for victories or defeats, not because they just made, sometimes outrageously, because I'm thinking it's more, shall we say, from the Crusader standpoint, just because I know it better. Boy, I forget the name, but the battle that sort of presaged the Third Crusade that was lost, that the Crusaders were just slaughtered by the Muslims because they made many and repeated mistakes on let's see, is this a good view from the enemy is over there. And they made just so many mistakes,
On my way.
including marching in terrain without
Archers.
water and other
All
things.
right.
Archers.
Yes, my lord.
So that they put their armies at such a disadvantage before the first contact with the enemy. So it definitely leadership is a
Infantry.
real factor in the Crusades as to who wins and who loses. Most surely that, but I also think it's a logistical factor. Yes, you had the mild advantage because we see a downgrading in naval engineering technology in the Middle Ages compared to the classical period. Some of the better technology was preserved by the Islamic world, but not, in my opinion, enough to say that they preserved the great bulk or
Cavalry.
classical world technology. I'll put them down here. I think that's still way outside of their arrow range, I hope. Or we're going to come down off these mountains. Get the foot on them. So that is... so you have the sea out there as a logistical help in moving supplies and such, but it's not anything like the 18th century or even what the classical era. By that I'm talking Roman Empire, if you will, Alexandrian Roman Empire. So that
Infantry.
what good and bad elements there, but it was a much longer and more tenuous supply chain back to Europe for whether it's reinforcements of manpower or any other supplies of any type would need to come from Europe. And the various Islamic forces were in theater and had the majority of local support. Unfortunately, I would say in this, I may be wrong, but I think the Crusaders alienated the local Christians to some degree because local Christians, am I getting this right, Marionite? I've got to look this up for the next, well, not next episode, but one of the, because I have to play several in a row here. In one of the future episodes, there was there, and then the Coptic Christians in Egypt were both different Christian sects than even the Byzantine Orthodox Christians, and so the Catholics of the Crusades weren't necessarily thinking of them as the right type of Christian, so they succeeded in alienating them to some degree,
Infantry.
as well as
Yes, my king.
Infantry.
let's speed this up a little bit more.
Absolutely.
And then obviously there was a majority of
Archers.
Yes, my lord.
Islamic population that looked favorably on Islam, so that you were directly in enemy territory, if you will, for the Crusades. That's why I think they ultimately failed. Not in the mindset of Western warfare with, this is a bit overdone, particularly for the Crusades. It's more
Infantry.
like on the cover of our the thumbnails for the series, in that it's completely encased as much as possible in chainmail with a good sort of helmet on your head, as being the sort of standard knights of this period. And so in doing that, I don't think it was, though, these are immobile versus a mobile
Scatter the enemy.
force. I don't,
Infantry.
as reasons for victory or loss. And
Scatter the enemy.
well,
Faster.
just move forward, guys.
Archers.
Using the hills to advantage here. we're on top of the hill camera.
Perfect. Archers.
Yes, my lord.
Archers.
I'll sacrifice you if need be, guys.
Move
But
faster.
okay, let me pause this. Okay, I'm going to end this episode here. This game engine doesn't allow me to save and leave and come back. So I'm going to have to keep playing but for the next episode. But thanks for viewing. Again, please like these videos. It really helps give visibility to the channel overall. The more videos get liked, as well as I would like to hear your comments, whether on my thoughts on conflicting styles of warfare or just on how I'm doing in the game. Either way, thanks so much.